Here's a big time saver when you're doing any type of recording or producing is to set up a template. In this case, we're going to set up a template for um, loop recording. So we need some basic tracks, and then I want to set up some group tracks for later on when I start to do the mix, and that'll save me a lot of time. So our very basic tracks are going to be a chord track, an arranger track, a marker track, a ruler track, a piano track that's going to follow our chord track, and a vocal track. So let's add some tracks. Now I'm using Cubase Pro 9, but most digital audio workstations have the same capability where you can set up a template and then go back later and use that template continuously every time you want to create a project. You can just click on the template and everything will be all set up for you. So let's start by adding a ruler track. And I want to add a ruler track. This is also a ruler up on top here, and that shows all the bars and beats. And this one down here right now is showing bars and beats, but I want to set this one for seconds. And this way, when I'm done, I can see how long my project is. And I want to try to keep it between 3 and 4 minutes for commercial use. The next track I want to add is an arranger track. Now most of the sections that I work with are 8 bars long. That's pretty much standard for most commercial music, but pop music today doesn't have standard numbers of measures anymore. So I like to compose with a specific number of measures, the standard amount, which is 8 bars to a section. And then later on, I can do an arrangement and change that if I need to change it. So first I'm going to add 3 sections to this arranger track, 3 8-bar sections. Okay, then I'm going to label these verse. Chorus. And bridge. Okay, so now I have my 3 sections. Some people may want to add a pre-chorus, or maybe they want to do a 4-section song with 2 bridges and label one bridge 1 and the other one bridge 2 and so on. I like to work with 3 sections. This is just a personal preference, but you can set your template up any way you want. Okay, the next track I want to add is a marker track. And this is going to be section markers. And then I want to set my left and right locators for the verse and add a section marker there. Then do the same for the chorus. And add a section marker. And then for the bridge. Okay, in Cubase, if you want to set your left and right locators quickly to a section, you just highlight it and then hit the letter P, and it jumps right to that section. Letter P jumps right to that section. Now, once you have your section markers in, all you need to do is just double click on a marker and that'll move your locators from one section to the other. Okay, so that's section markers. Later on, I'm going to add some length markers, but I'm going to just stick with the section markers right now. Okay, the next track I want to add is a chord track. And then I want to put some phantom chords in here. Just some blank chords, one at the beginning of each section. And that's just to help me get started. And then when I'm ready to add the actual chords to it, I just double click on it there. And then I can add whatever chords I want. If I zoom in on the sections, I can add more chords to each section. But to start with one is a pretty good idea, because it just helps you get started. Okay, then I want to add a piano track that's going to follow this chord track. When the chord plays, it's going to play back on the piano. So let's add an instrument track. And I'm going to use Halion Sonic SE. And that has a very nice piano sound called SR Live Grand. Now, if you're using a different workstation, or even if you're using Cubase and you prefer a different sound, you can use any sound you want. It doesn't have to even be piano. It can be synthesizer or marimba, anything. And then we're going to label this piano chord track. And then over here, we're going to set the chord track to play back just on the piano. Right now, it's set for any tracks that are monitored, but I like to use it just on my piano chord track. So we'll do that. And then the last of the tracks that we're going to add is a vocal track. So this is just a scratch vocal. So let's add an audio track now. And we'll make this a mono track and call it vocal. Okay, so now we have our main track set up. So I can go back and forth to the piano track and then add a vocal later if I just want to work with piano and vocal, or I can add some other loops to it and create an arrangement and then add my vocal afterwards. So everything is set up to do that now. So the next thing I want to do is set up some group tracks for when I'm ready to mix. So on my group tracks, I'm going to need, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 10 group tracks. So let's set it up for 10. And these are going to be stereo, 10 tracks, and create them inside a folder. Now when you create inside the folder, it puts everything into a folder like this one that you see right here. And then I can open and close the folder to show and hide. That'll show, that'll hide the group tracks. So now I want to make sure that I have a group track for these two at least, and then a group track for each of the additional instruments that I want to add. So I want one for drums and percussion. Let's go drums. And then one for percussion. And then I want one for summing up the drums and percussion. And then we need one for piano, one for bass. Let's go piano next. And then I need one to sum up the instruments. And then one for a lead vocal. Let's put a vocal lead. And let's make that instruments group. And then a vocal harmony. And then we need a vocal mix of the lead and the harmonies. And then we need a mix group to sum up the vocal mix and the instruments group. Okay, so this is the final end of the funnel, which goes to our stereo out bus. That's going to the stereo out bus. And then our vocal mix group and our instrument group are going to funnel into the mix group. So before I do that, I need to come over here and set the quick link on so that when I highlight more than one track, anything I do to one track will be done to both tracks. So here's the two tracks that are highlighted, and I'm going to select the routing here for the mix group, and you'll see that it changes on both. So here you have the mix group, and then this one also changed to the mix group. Okay, so now we're going to go to our vocal lead and harmony group. And we're going to route these to our vocal mix group. And then we want the drums and percussion to be routed to the drums and percussion group. And then we want to take the drums and percussion group, the piano group, and the bass group, and route these to the instruments group. Okay, and then we're going to come up here to the tracks, and we're going to take the vocal track, and we're going to start with a lead vocal, so we'll call this vocal lead. If I choose to add a harmony vocal later, I can add that and just route it to the harmony vocal track. But for now, I'm just going to stick with a lead. So vocal lead track is going to go to the vocal lead group. And then the piano from the chord track is going to get routed to the piano group. Now the routing on instrument tracks is a little different. You can't catch it over here like you do with the audio tracks, so I have to go over here or to the mixer. And piano chord track, I can route that to the piano group. So that's all set up now. The next thing I want to do is I want to set my equalizers, my high and low pass filters for each track, including the group tracks, because in Cubase 9, they made it possible to get a steeper curve on your high and low cut filters, but it defaults to 12, minus 12. So you can now make them go as far as 48 dB cut. So I want to set each one up for a 48 dB cut so I don't have to fiddle with it. when I'm actually doing my filtering. And that was a piano chord track. And we're going to go to the vocal lead and do the same thing. And then the drums group. And you can see what a big time saver this is going to be, because you don't have to do this every time you create a project. Just set this up once and then create your project, and everything is all set and ready to go for you. Okay, and I won't mess with the stereo output bus because I prefer not to put any equalization or any plugins or sends or anything like that on there, because I'm going to use that also for setting my reference track to when I'm ready to do a mix. I like to use a reference track, and this way I can send the reference track separately to the stereo out bus, and I can work on the equalization and the plugins for any of these tracks without it affecting what's going through stereo out bus, so it doesn't affect the reference track as well. So now I have everything set up. Now the next thing I want to do is, this is optional, but it makes things a lot easier, and that's first of all to set everything in alphabetical order. So here we have piano and vocal, so that's already in alphabetical order. But over here, bass should go first, and then we have drums, and okay, drums and percussion are together, and then they funnel down into the drums and percussion group. And then we have the piano group that comes next alphabetically, and then all this gets funneled down into the instruments group, and then the vocal group is last alphabetically, and then the vocal mix group, and then finally the mix group on the very end, and that's where everything goes to the stereo output bus. Okay. And then the next thing we want to do, once again, this is optional, and that's to use some color coding. So I'm going to start with the group tracks first, and I'll set my color coding here for the bass. And a bass is a dark sound, so I'm going to give it a darker color, like maybe a deep blue. And then the drums, and we'll give that maybe that shade. And then percussion is similar to the drums, so I'm going to give that one the same color. And then the drums and percussion, we'll give that the same color. And then the piano group, give it a brighter color, like maybe a lime green or lighter. And then the instrument group, we'll give that a light brown or an orange, I guess. And then the vocal group, we'll give all the vocals, let's give them a red. No, let's give them a brown. Okay, we'll give the vocal groups a brown. And then the mix group I'll make red. Okay, and then I want the tracks to correspond to these color codes as well. So my vocal group is brown, so my vocal, anything related to vocals is going to be brown on my tracks. And then my piano group is kind of like near a lime green, so I want to get my piano track, match that color. And that should do it for now. The chord track and the section markers and the arranger track, they don't really have to be color coded because you're not going to do anything with them to try to match them to any of the groups here. So now the template is set up and I want to save this as my template. Before I do, I want to first zoom full so that everything comes up like that. And I want it to default to start with a chorus section, and we're going to set it for cycle recording, which is looping that section. It'll play from the beginning of this section to the end, and then it'll go back and play the section again over and over. So I believe I have everything set up the way I want it. And now we just need to save that to a template. And we're going to name this template. See, I have one already made up here for chord track writer. I'm going to overwrite that. You could name it anything you want, but I named mine chord track writer. And I wanted to update that template anyway, so this was a good opportunity to do that. So now it's updated. And we're all set to go.
Hey guys, this is Coco the Koala Bear. If you found this video informative, feel free to like or share it.